So there I was just singing away there. Sorry I was a little bit late coming in. I couldn't obviously disturb that song because that is a monumental one. Those of you that haven't seen the film, you need to go and watch that at some point this weekend. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. My name is Annette Matthews. We are here this evening to talk about a rather juicy part of the skin, which is the dermis. So there's lots and lots going on in consideration of the other layers that we've been talking about over the last 5 weeks as well. So this is where we should all start to kind of put everything together. And then next week, we're going to be covering the hypodermis and then just amalgamating everything together as well. So you can watch these in series and correlation afterwards on the Shop Beautiful YouTube. So you should do that and just help keep yourself refreshed, only if you want to, but it will always help. I'll certainly be watching them back. Every day is a school day. So thank you very much for joining me. Please don't forget to tag us in on Shop Beautiful UK via Facebook and Instagram, and myself as well. I love to see what you've been up to, why you've been watching this evening as well. Always intrigued to see. So what have the last few weeks been about? Just bear with me. There we go. So it's about leveling up. I am a self-professed skin geek, absolutely love everything that there is to do with skin. This kind of came from my own journey with skin, but also from university when I was in dentistry. I had quite a few clients that were coming to me with skin concerns and considerations that I wanted to help them with. So here I am today. But ultimately, it's about leveling up. It's, you may be hearing things that you already know. Hopefully, you know lots and lots about the skin. That's why you're in this industry. You may be potentially coming into this industry, but predominantly those of you that are already in the industry know all this already. But it's about leveling up and just kind of keeping on top of that information and ensuring that you are up to date and getting the best out of products and treatments and everything else that you recommend as well. So I am a self-professed skin geek, and thank you for joining me, fellow skin geeks, this evening as well. So the Skin Science series comprises of 7 weeks of anatomy and skin science explained. And the reason for it is to refresh and revise on the anatomy of the skin, to understand implications of treatment within each layer. So I'm going to be asking questions. I know there's a lot of people who watch this on replay because I see the messages that come through afterwards, which is great. But I want you to kind of think about this as I'm asking the question. And if there is anybody to contribute, then please do in the chat, because it always makes it a little bit more interesting for me and more interactive as well. What I want you to get out of this more than anything is confidence within your treatment options and your product choices. So if we go on the Shop Beautiful catalogue, there are so many products. It kind of becomes that point where we don't know which is best for our client potentially. We may stock 1 or 2 different brands, where are we going to go? For me, the answer comes from science, and the answer comes from learning that little bit more about the skin and what it is that's going on as well. So I've seen on the Shop Beautiful blog pages that we've just started doing a skin ingredients information blog, which is really, really good to have alongside this and just keep refreshing yourself on. I was reading on one on vitamin C just the other day. And I personally, with the Shop Beautiful guys, I'm looking at planning an A to Z on the sort of things that we look for in skin products and why and what they do for the skin as well. So albeit I'm not going to be talking about products this evening. I think there may be obviously a mention of some ingredients in products, but this isn't a product heavy webinar. That is not how I roll. Those of you that know me hopefully know that my background is predominantly in educating you guys and helping you guys understand. And I'm not here because I know everything, because I don't. I'm here because of how I implement things in my clinic and how it works, and I want to share that with you guys as well. So that's me. This is me. That's me with my Shop Beautiful water bottle, which literally follows me around everywhere. My niece said to me this morning, "Is that a Love Island water bottle?" I was like, "Definitely not." But it's my Shop Beautiful one, and I think there is a competition on Instagram to win one at the minute. So check that out. So I'm from Derbyshire. I live in Derbyshire, and I also have a clinic in the Derbyshire Dales in the Peak District. And this was me walking around Carsington a few weekends ago, and I've actually ran it this morning as well. So I am a little bit of an outside geek, love being outside with my SPF on and looking after myself as well. So my clinic is based up in Wirksworth. My background is dentistry. I'm a dental hygienist, dental therapist. Previous to that, I was a dental nurse. Previous to that, practice manager. And previous to that, I was in beauty therapy. So I've kind of come around to where I am now. I have my skin and aesthetic clinic and also a training academy. I absolutely love everything that there is. Skin, helping clients, helping you help your clients as well is it really is rewarding. So that's why I'm here, and truly humbled to be here as well, to be asked to do these things. I still kind of think, really, you want me to do it? But always humbled to be here as well. So a big thing for me, and I talk about this, and I've talked about this over the last webinars, when we are talking to our clients about options that we have and treatments that we do, and we may find new products that we want to use, we get really excited about the science behind it, about everything and how it's going to work. That's why we're here, right? Don't get ingrained into that. Always remember from that layman's terms and the client's point of view that they will have a problem and we need to find the solution. So when we are putting social media adverts out or anything like that, it's very, very important that we make that very, very clear. So it's great if you put a social post on this evening. I can't wait to see it, or tomorrow morning, whenever you do it. Please do tag us in so we can see what you've been up to and how it's kind of ignited it for you. But always have at the back of your mind what your clients will be looking for. So, okay, the clinic has obviously done some extracurricular reading last night. They've watched a webinar, but how's that going to help my problem? That's what I'm getting at. So ultimately, what you're learning this evening is about skin science. It's about the dermis. It's about what is going on within that area. So when you have clients that come to you with certain problems, I mean, we're talking a lot about collagen and elastin tonight. So let's just use one as an example for anti-aging, sagging skin, poor skin quality. Make sure that you're always resonating with those solutions for your clients as well. That's my advice to you. So deep down in dermis, we are covering the dermis this evening. The dermis is made up of connective tissue between the epidermis and the sub-Q layers, sub-Q tissue, which we're going to be covering a little bit more next week with the adipose tissue, which is the fatty layer, before we get to the periosteum, which is the bone, of course, as well in certain areas. It's a fibrous structure, meaning fibrous is kind of congealed together. When you look under a magnifying glass, you can see the different areas quite distinctively when it's dyed, as we can see here. We also have what's called the extracellular matrix. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, when I first started in aesthetics, so this is injectables from university, I went on to do your Botox and filler courses. I genuinely didn't know what the extracellular matrix was within the skin and what it was composed of. And I'm not afraid to say that, because this is why I am here. I'm here to make a change, to make sure that we are learning things from the basics up. So the extracellular matrix of living matter generally, but within the skin, it's made up of collagen and elastin and lots of other things, which we're going to be covering lots of this evening as well. So the extracellular matrix is what's going on deep down in the dermis. It's very, very important that we understand how, what, and why that's going on. So the functions of normal skin. When the extracellular matrix that we've just learned about and the skin is functioning properly, this is what it does. All of the above. It's a mechanical barrier. It's a chemical barrier. It's going to help prevent fluid loss. We learned about that when we were talking about the epidermis, and in particular the stratum spinosum, stratum corneum, and those are the layers that we were covering over the last few weeks. That defense against microorganisms, we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, because we're talking about the sebum that's produced from our sebaceous gland as well. So it's important that we understand how that helps with microorganisms. That immunological barrier and an endocrine organ. So this is what is happening within the dermis. So deeper down, we've got lots more activity going on. We talked last week about melanin and that protection against UV, and that's very important to reflect on. And remember, obviously, these melanocytes that we learned about in the last layer last week, the stratum basal, the basal layer, this is the last line of defense before we hit the hard stuff, and that's the dermis, where everything else is going on. Thermoregulation, we're going to talk about that this evening when we're talking about the hair follicles and how the erector pili muscle will help us regulate our temperature as well. and the fact that it's a sensory organ and the sensors. Again, we're going to touch on that this evening. So there's a lot to go through, in particular when we are talking about the dermis, but it all molds together. So remember, if that dermis is functioning properly and the skin is functioning properly, this is what it does, and it does it well. But how often do we come across somebody who has all of this going on to the best of its ability because they're doing absolutely everything right? It doesn't work that way. We know there are always going to be things, aggressors to the skin, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, so it's come from the outside or the inside, they're always going to be there. So how can we help with that? Just bear with me. So the primary functions of the dermis is for protection. It's going to cushion these deeper structures from any sort of mechanical injury as well. We have nourishment to the epidermis, so we're going to talk about the blood vessels and how that works today as well, and that wound healing process as well. So this is where that wound healing cascade happens. That's where the good stuff happens. If we have an injury, if we inflict a controlled injury, which we're going to talk about in terms of treatments that we do every day for our clients, then how does that wound healing process come into play? So let's start with the papillary dermis. The papillary dermis lies just beneath the dermal to epidermal junction. So I teach this, but what treatments do we predominantly utilize for this contact point? You may all have obviously been trained differently. It depends on your qualification as to where and what you do with this sort of device. But microneedling. So microneedling, as we know, we are hitting that papillary dermis just where that dermal to epidermal junction kicks in when we're doing medical microneedling to get a response from the dermis as well. There are other treatments, of course, with injectables and potentially other over-the-counter, medical grade and or Shop Beautiful available products that we can use. Dependent on the molecular size is dependent on whether it actually gets to this area as well, and that's important to know. But we can do treatments before, like your dermaplaning, your chemical peels. All of these things are going to help products penetrate better to that papillary dermis level. It's made up of loose connective tissue like capillaries, elastic fibers, reticular fibers, and of course, collagen. The reticular dermis, it's deeper and thicker layer lying just above that subcutaneous layer, which we're going to talk about next week in more detail. This is where it becomes a little bit more dense. So it's a denser network of connective tissues, blood vessels, interconnected elastins. This is where the elastin all kind of amalgamates together. The collagen fibers, these fibroblasts, mast cells, nerve endings, and that obviously lymphatic drainage as well. So we're going to cover all of that this evening, so please don't worry. Or please do worry, but please don't worry, because then we're going to be fine by the end of it. Clear substance within the dermis as well. So this is a gel-like consistency that contains mucopolysaccharides, sulfates, and those glycoproteins. So this is, if you imagine the extracellular matrix, a bit gooey with everything else going on within inside it. One terminology that I use a lot with a certain product that I train with, and I wish it was my analogy, I was taught this way, and that's how I've then professed it to everybody else, and that is a fish tank. So if you imagine the skin as a fish tank, the extracellular matrix of the skin, the dermis, as a fish tank, you've got your hydration, you've got your clear substance within the dermis, those mucopolysaccharides. You've also got your plants, which is your collagen, your elastin fibers that holds it all together. And then you've got your fish, which are the fibroblasts. So the fibroblasts go around creating new collagen and elastin. They need hydration, so they need water, and they need food as well. So that's where, when we're thinking about products, we're thinking about treatments that we do, you see something that you can potentially offer that offers growth F factors. So there's your growth fibroblast factor. Okay. Hopefully it's all starting to make sense. It's little things like this. When I started out, I was like, growth F factor, what are we talking about? And hopefully that will help some of you this evening. So what is a fibroblast? A fibroblast is there to produce and secrete and proliferate collagen and elastin fibers. Collagen makes up over 70% of the weight of the dermis, so it's fairly important, but elastin does make up a smaller percentage of that as well. But we need them both for the skin to function correctly, for it to be protected efficiently, for it to give us that youthful appearance, for it to keep hydrated, for it to keep repaired, for it to pretty much do everything that it does on that first slide that I showed you. Okay, so a fibroblast is crucial to keep happy, to keep alive, to do what it needs to do. A fibroblast is there to recreate collagen and elastin fibers. As we age, naturally, these fibroblasts become tired, they become exhausted, like we all do, because they're overworked and underpaid. So if we're not putting the correct products on the skin to feed the fibroblasts or underneath the skin to help the fibroblasts proliferate collagen and elastin, then that's when we start to see that aging process proceed quite quickly. So a fibroblast is crucial, and you will see lots and lots of products that claim and or do help the fibroblast and its activity. Okay, so really, really important one to remember. Collagen, we know this too well. Another one, fibroblasts. Educate your clients to a fibroblast. There's a post for you. Tell them about your fibroblast, how it works, and why it's important to ensure that we've got growth fibroblast activity with treatments that we offer. So we have chemical peels, we have microneedling, we have dermaplaning, obviously some of you that do injectables potentially as well. So how does that fibroblast work? Collagen, as we know, our clients know what collagen is. They may be taking collagen supplements, they may be into this themselves already. But it's very, very important to make sure that we talk to them about the different types of collagen. Predominantly type 1 collagen is found within the dermis, but you will find type 3 as well. Triple helix structure. So if you think about how it's created, if you're into all of that biochemistry side of thing, it consists of amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks of cells and life. So collagen is made up of amino acids, in particular glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline. Type 1 collagen fibers have a massive, enormous tensile strength. I've read somewhere, and I can't remember where I was looking for it for this webinar this evening, but I couldn't reference it, so I didn't put it in. But collagen being stronger than steel when it's all laid out together, it is immensely strong and tensile, in particular the collagen type 1. Can be stretched without being broken. So it's so good to have that robust collagen underneath the skin. And as you can see pictured to the left or the right, whichever way you are looking at it, younger skin, we have lots and lots of collagen fibers that give that bounce to the skin. As we age, those collagen, and remember the fibroblasts that are making it have denatured and they are not creating as much collagen, and or the collagen that they create is tired and a little bit haggard. So that's why we start to see that dip in the epidermis and the folds within the skin that form, because our collagen is not quite as bouncy and plump as it used to be, nor is the hydration underneath the skin. Elastin, 1% of the dermal weight potentially is made up by this. It's a key extracellular matrix protein, so ECM protein, that provides resilience and elasticity to tissues and organs. So I explain this quite often to my clients as a hair scrunchie or an elastic band. So you have elastin fibers. Elastin is roughly 1,000 times more flexible than the collagen, so it's just as important as the collagen, but it's what provides that texture to the skin. So you imagine the skin tone, not the color, but the tone of the skin. You will see someone, and it's atypical that they have elastosis, which is why the elastin is overworked and underpaid in areas of movement. So we see it around the mouth, we see it around the eyes. We see it around areas where the skin has been stretched and back, stretched and back, stretched and back because of movement. We see it when people have lost weight and put weight back on. So elastosis is a really, really important thing to understand. And elastin, which helps prevent elastosis, and good quality elastin, again, is something that we need to make sure that we understand and know enough about. So this is where I want to kind of put it out to the room just for a few seconds and hopefully we'll get some answers, and there are some people watching live, otherwise I sit here like an absolute tool. What treatment or products can we consider from what we know and what we've learned this evening already for collagen and elastin proliferation? So what can help make collagen and elastin? Remember the fibroblasts that we talked about. So anybody, somebody pop something in the chat. I know there are some people on here because I can see. So what treatment or products can we consider for collagen and elastin proliferation? So what's going to help create collagen and elastin? Anybody out there? Oh, here we go. Who have we got? Thank you, Lorraine. We've got microneedling. Helical peels, yeah, peels, 100%. Oh, chemical peels. That makes a bit more sense, Lorraine. Thank you. A radio frequency. Somebody said antioxidants. You know, that's the first one that came in, and I'm so glad I saw that, Rosanna. Antioxidants, 100%. Antioxidants are amazing for the skin. An antioxidant, something like vitamin C, is incredible to help repair collagen, and it's also going to remove free radicals from underneath the skin that cause us problems as well. Someone else has mentioned Sunnycost there. Thank you, Karen. Hopefully, you know what I was getting at with some of this. LED light therapy, 100%. So there are lots and lots of things that we can think about offering that are going to help proliferate collagen and elastin production. But do our clients know that that's what it does? There's a question. Do they know that all these treatments, these amazing treatments that you have, do they know what solution they provide? That's something for you to think about this evening. Microneedling, chemical peels, laser, mesotherapy, yes, 100%. So mesotherapy, we are putting products underneath the skin, remember, into that dermal layer where all the action is, as for just like you've said. Very, very important one. Nanofractional radio frequency, yes, radio frequency, we are heating the collagen up to destroy it in the nicest possible way. And then we are obviously encouraging new collagen production with products and things that we're putting in there as well. And the laser works in a very similar way. Okay, perfect. So what treatment products can we consider for collagen? You've got a few in there. So the next one I want you to think about is products. So when you're looking through the Shop Beautiful catalogue, are there sort of products that you look at and think, actually, you know, these are the sort of things that I can help promote collagen and elastin production with to my clients as well, and the solutions that you're going to provide. So do your clients know that? That's my question to you. And always think that when we're thinking about putting any posts out on social media too. So mast cells, just to kind of cover a few other bits and bobs that's going on within the dermis, just to make sure we've got clarity on that. So a mast cell is a granular cell that contains histamine and other chemicals. These chemicals and the histamine are released upon a damage or disturbance to it. So a very, very important cell. We have vascular smooth muscle cells as well, and they are responsible for contraction and dilation of blood vessels for homeostasis of body temperature. So your vascular smooth muscle cells in certain skin conditions may cause us a little bit of a problem as well. So that's why it's important to help regulate body temperature and ensure the skin is functioning the best way that it can. They are an inflammatory cell located within the perivascular area of the dermis. So it's where it's very vascular, around the vascular area is what perivascular means, just the posh way of putting it. Mast cells secrete vasoactive and pro-inflammatory mediators. So they are going to proliferate to help with inflammation. So they're going to help produce things to help with inflammation when it kicks off, basically. So it's a reactant to it. They're going to help with collagen remodeling and that wound healing. So don't forget, as much as we love collagen for the fact that our skin looks amazing, it's also extremely important for wound healing and that wound healing process. And we rely upon it for some of the treatments that we do. A lot of the time we are doing a controlled injury to the skin. And it's important. I always tell my clients that that's what's happening. Okay, yep, literally, we are putting acid on your skin right now. And the reason for that is X, Y, and Z. And they always kind of, you know, we laugh it off. But those that are very anxious and nervous about chemical peels and or treatments, you know, even if they're using AHAs and BHA cleansers at home, they can be a little bit anxious about it. But make sure we explain the whole process. Dermal adipocytes, let's get that right. Dermal adipocytes. Dermal adipocytes are a distinct cell population within the subcutaneous adipose tissue. So we'll cover them in a little bit more detail next week as well. Not only do they provide insulation and storage of energy, but they also assist in the hair follicle regen and wound healing, which is why I wanted to put it in this evening as well. Nerve endings, these will obviously vary in amount and sensitivity in sensitive areas. And we learned about the different types of skin, like the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet in another webinar. So hopefully that will make a little bit more sense when we're talking about the variety of sensitivity from nerve endings as well. They provide the feelings. The dermis is full of these nerve endings that send signals to the brain about how things feel, whether it hurts, whether it itches, or whether it feels good. So something that I tell all my clients, rightly or wrongly, usually once I've started the treatment, but any sort of treatment that I do to the left side, potentially they may feel more than on the right. And you may find this when you do things to yourself and or have had things done. This is to do with the signal from your hypothalamus, which is a little bit closer to your left-hand side. And that is why that happens. Someone who is obviously pre-hormonal as well, at that time of the month, they can sometimes feel things a little bit more as well, and things can be a little bit more heightened when people are stressed, because we know the effect that stress has on the skin already, don't we? So sweat glands. Heat and stress are an indicator of sweat. So obviously people can have, sweat issues, and that's very important if we can help them with that with certain procedures that we can potentially provide and or signpost them to. You have your apocrine sweat glands found in odorous parts, so that's kind of underarm and the genital parts as well. And you have eccrine glands that you find elsewhere. We also have sebaceous glands, which are going to secrete the sebum. And as we learned in that very first slide, they keep the moisture in and they help keep the bacteria out. So a sebaceous gland is extremely important, and you can't quite see it on this picture here, but the amount of oil produced is what's going to help protect the skin. And as we know, in the likes of acne and things like that, then an overproduction of that sebaceous gland can cause us problems as well. So that's why we have our sebum regulating products and or procedures that we can offer. This is all going on in the dermis. There's a lot going on, right? Hair follicles, various types found in different parts of the skin. A hair follicle is going to help regulate the body temperature, protect from injury, and also enhance that sensation. Every follicle root is attached to a tiny muscle, as you can see pictured here, known as the erector pili muscle. These contract when the body becomes cold or scared. That's why we get goosebumps, okay? Sorry, that's my dog barking now. And so where were we? So yes, so obviously the erector pili muscle will contract when the body becomes cold or scared. And that is what's going to help regulate that body temperature as well. Blood vessels. Blood vessels are there to carry nutrients. They are also there to discard any metabolized waste. By metabolized waste, I mean what's been created from the cells and everything else that's going on within the dermis, because there's a bit going on, right? So what's going to be taken away within the lymph via these blood vessels as well. Regulation of body temperature is via the blood vessels too. So when we have that hot to cold environment, we have that trigger of a contraction and or a dilation of a blood vessel. So what skin condition or concern can cause this? We know this, right? Medically diagnosed one, but we kind of see this quite often in certain cases when they haven't been looking after their skin and or they are outside an awful lot as well. So it's an important one that we learn to understand, in particular people that are going through pre and post hormonal changes, the difference between their regulation of body temperature as well. It's something that we can potentially help them out with certain treatments. So what sort of treatments or products can we offer that involve and encourage blood flow? Here's maybe a bit of a trick question, but one I thought I'd put out there anyway. So what treatments, products can we offer that involve and encourage blood flow? And why do we want to encourage blood flow? We want to encourage blood flow because when we have more blood flow to the dermis, then what's going to happen? We're going to have more nutrients in the area. When we have more nutrients, what else is going to happen? That collagen, that elastin, can you remember that fibroblast that I've just told you about? What is that going to do? It's going to regenerate and proliferate new collagen and elastin fibers. It's going to be fed. It's a feeding frenzy. When we have more blood flow to the area, we have a lot more activity that can potentially happen. So very, very important. So what's everybody saying? Not too many. Massage, very good, excellent. So that's a really, really easy one. So any sort of stimulation to the skin, even when I do dermaplaning, you guys might agree or not, you get slight redness to the area. We are removing that vellus hair, which is attached to the skin. We are doing some sort of stimulation to the skin as well. So just touching the face. You've got your jade rollers, your lymph drain massage, application of products. We have chemical peels that will apply on the skin. I've already talked about this. We're throwing acid on the skin to encourage that wound response to the area, to bring all that nutrients to the area, take away what we don't want there, and have that influx of activity. So it's a really important process in order to help the skin heal. Carboxytherapy, that's a really good one, Lorraine, as well. Radio frequency and LED light therapy and microdermabrasion as well, Rosanna. Yeah, really, really good. Thank you guys that are interacting. It always makes it a little bit more interesting for me sat here behind the desk. So dermis. The dermis is there to give the skin its structure and help hold its shape. That dermal layer is responsible for the turgor of the skin. If you imagine all of that wasn't there, what would we look like? Well, we'd literally just be skeletons with just a flap of skin on. You know, everything has its place. We're going to learn a little bit more about adipose tissue and fatty tissue and how that holds a certain place as well. Adipose tissue is its own endocrine organ, which is incredible when you think about that. We're going to cover that in a little bit more detail next week as well. So when we're offering treatments, where should we start? We should start with the skin. We should start with the structure. We should start with the foundations and exactly what is going on underneath. In a similar way as it does the foundation of a building. You wouldn't build a house without any foundations. I say that to my clients all the time. They come in wanting quite invasive treatments. They come in wanting what they think they want, whereas ultimately we need to address the foundations first. And it's down to us to help them understand that. I predominantly don't offer professional treatments until they commit to home care. That is how I roll. And have I lost clients from that? Yes, I probably have. But do they come back eventually? Yes, they have done. You know, we set the foundations, we set that preventative mindset, and we get all of that in place. And then we implement our professional treatments, and we always get better results that way from experience. You've got to get your client on board, of course. So interactions within the epidermis. Not only does the dermis have these complex functions that we've learned about this evening, but it's also constantly in contact and communication with the epidermis, regulating those important bodily processes. So as we know, the cells within the epidermis influence the dermis, which in turn influence that skin cell turnover, so the metabolism of the skin. Via the activity of cells, such as the mast cells, these secrete something called a cytokine. A cytokine is like a signal and a message. So they're constantly and consistently talking to one another. It's the interaction of these two layers that, in fact, when become disrupted, can cause conditions such as psoriasis and other things as well. So that it's so important they are able to talk to one another to do what they need to do. So when we think about the functions of normal skin and all of that that's going on, there's an awful lot that we can really help our client with and help them understand. We need to help them understand how they can be there to help maintain their skin as that mechanical barrier, the chemical barrier, help prevent fluid loss. Why does it matter? Why does it matter if I lose moisture from my skin? So that's why it's important to educate them to the foundations. The defense against microorganisms, as we know, predominantly the main reason that our skin will potentially go wrong is because of that barrier, the lipid barrier, and the effect that that's had on moisture loss and retention of moisture, and also obviously bacteria and things getting in as well. We talked about melanin last week as well in a bit more detail. So the damage, I mean, I've not touched on that this week, but we did cover it last week, but the damage that is caused to our skin within the dermis. So the dermis is where, you know, all the blood, all the good stuff happens. And the basal layer, the layer above, is there to protect and prevent any damage to our DNA underneath as well. And that is what the melanin does. So melanin and our melanocytes in that basal layer will help protect the dermis. So there becomes that intracellular connection that they have. And on that note, obviously, as always, I'm going to remind you about the MASCED accreditation. So Skin are a charity very close to my heart. I am an ambassador for them. If you haven't already, check out their online accreditation. We do have a webinar in a few weeks on behalf of Shop Beautiful to talk about this. And it is about the early signs of skin cancer and melanoma and how we can help our clients not diagnose, but help detect these things earlier. Obviously, as we know, the earlier the diagnosis, the better. And this comes from protection. So this is, it could be your first conversation with your client, practicing good sun protection all year round. There is some Helio Care training on the Shop Beautiful website as well. So if you need to obviously stock some SPFs and you're not sure what's right for which skin type, get on there and do that. It's a really, really good starting point for you guys to get started. So again, just to kind of close, we're getting there now, guys. So if you've got any questions, do pop them in the Q&A for me. Interfering with or altering the functional properties of any one of the components can weaken this barrier. So we talked about that barrier function. So this is where we've got the dermis underneath with all of that going on that we've talked about today. How are we going to protect that? We're going to protect that from the top down. So that barrier function. I saw it just today on a forum. You know, someone was asking about a certain skin condition. We always start with the barrier function. We start with the fundamental. We're not just going to go and fire in professional treatments. We start with the foundations, in my humble opinion. We think about intrinsic and extrinsic considerations. We start with home care. We educate them. We talk them about lifestyle. We talk them through how, what, and why something potentially has happened. And we help them understand and prevent it from getting worse before we even consider correcting it. As you know, as soon as we start to interfere with that, if it's already breached, then we could cause problems. And, you know, I tell my clients a lot, when we do start to intervene, things get worse before they get better a lot of the time as well. But we always implement with home care first and foremost. Oops. As we know, the skin's barrier is constantly exposed to changing environmental stresses, some of which we can control and we can help them control with education and with certain products as well. We start with home care. We start with prevention over invasive treatments. We fix the foundations. Why would you build a house without any? Although the skin has many barrier properties, the two most important are creating a barrier against that movement of water and the electrolytes. Remember that good juicy stuff within the dermis that we need to keep there, right? That permeability barrier, create a barrier against the entry of microorganisms and prevent moisture from getting out and losing that integrity of the skin. A little goes a long way, so let's start with prevention. What factors can we control when it comes to skin damage and upholding the integrity of the skin? We can control education. We can control what they're putting on their skin and why and when. We can control SPF. We can help them understand their integrity of the skin and what, where, and why it might have gone wrong as well. We can help them understand the functions of normal skin. So when, you know, every time you have a client in front of you and they come for that first initial appointment, these are sort of things that we need to be looking at. Is it providing a mechanical barrier? Do they have that chemical barrier? Are we preventing fluid loss and moisture loss? What are their pores like? You know, let's have a little look at what's going on. Is it oily? Is it overproducing oil? If you run through the functions of normal skin as part of your skin analysis, you'll be able to work out potentially where to start with your recommendations and professional treatments, in my opinion. But as always, we start with prevention. Prevention is key. both for the skin cancer side of things, but also to prevent further damage to the skin. And if we're going to start professional treatments, we want to prevent any further damage from any treatments that we're doing as well. Anyone, any idea of what percentage of skin aging is preventable? So remember what we talked about in the dermis. We've got our collagen, our elastin, we've got our fibroblasts, we've got that natural aging process that occurs, which we can't do anything about, but we've got all the contributing factors. What we say extrinsic means it's coming from the outside. So there's a percentage of that is preventable. And those of you guys that have seen my webinars before will know, yes, 90%. So 90% of skin aging is preventable, which is insane. So that's what we can help our clients with. We help with education, we help with products, we help with professional treatments as well. This is just, every time I say this, I talk to my client about it, it's unbelievable that 90% of the reason their skin looks the way it does could have been prevented. And yes, we're going to age naturally, that's going to happen, but that severe damage that we see to the skin is preventable. And that's pretty insane. And that's something that we can all help with. We can prevent to protect their skin, and we can educate to eliminate the damage that's being done to the skin. What we can do now to correct is help with educational content posts alongside products and professional treatments that we offer. And that is something that I feel really strongly about. So how can we help our clients understand what is going on? How can we wean them away from the supermarket and the products that are offered there that we know potentially are not the best for them? That's where obviously our background and our educational posts and content that we can put out there can come in. It's not been a product heavy webinar, and I hope you've preferred it that way, but I do have some blogs. I've got 1 or 2 to catch up on actually for these guys for the Skin Science series. So we've got blogs to follow all of this, where I will be making product recommendations and the things that I utilize from the Shop Beautiful catalogs for my clients as well, for certain skin concerns and when we're talking about different areas of the skin. Next week, we have the hypodermis, so same time next week at 7 o'clock. We're going to talk about the hypodermis, adipose tissue, fatty tissue, the periosteum, that interlink between everything that's going on within the skin and the extracellular matrix. And we're going to have a general recap on the whole of the last few weeks as well, and I'm looking forward to that. So I do hope you've enjoyed this evening, and let's have a look if I've got any questions to proceed with. No, you've just popped in. Yeah, microneedling, chemical peels, laser rejuvenation, retinol. Someone else has mentioned that's one that we didn't talk about this evening as well. But yeah, retinol is going to help with that skin cell turnover, which is super important too. What's going on? Let me just check this. So I do hope you've enjoyed this evening. I look forward to seeing some of you next week. So please do share if you've enjoyed this, so we can gain some more people to get on board and help their clients as well. And have a lovely rest of the evening, what is left of it. And I look forward to seeing some of you next week. Don't forget to tag and share if you've enjoyed this evening. Thanks again for joining me, guys. Do take care. Bye-bye.